You know that morning rush, right? It's a feeling we all know. And for a lot of us, the very first thing to get axed from the schedule is breakfast. But what if that seemingly small decision has way bigger health implications than we think? So today, we're going to dive into some new research that connects this super common habit to some pretty serious health risks. Okay, so honest question for you. Are you a breakfast skipper? Maybe you just grab a coffee and bolt out the door, or maybe you're just not hungry first thing. Whatever your reason, you are definitely not alone. But hang with me here, because what we're about to unpack might just change how you think about your morning routine. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. We've got to introduce the main character in this whole story, a health condition called metabolic syndrome. Now, it sounds kind of complicated, I know, but it's a really important concept for understanding your long-term health.
So, what is this thing exactly? Well, metabolic syndrome isn't one single disease. The best way to think of it is as a cluster of risk factors. When these conditions all show up to the party together, they dramatically crank up your chances of developing serious problems like heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. It's basically your body's warning system flashing a big, bright red light. So let's break down what this cluster of conditions actually includes. There are 5 key things to look for: extra fat around your belly, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high levels of a type of fat in your blood called triglycerides, and low levels of HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And here's the key thing: you don't even need all 5. Doctors will diagnose you with metabolic syndrome if you have at least 3 of these conditions. All right, so we've met metabolic syndrome. Now for the main event. What in the world does any of this have to do with skipping your morning meal? Well, the research points to a surprisingly direct connection. And boom, here it is. A huge recent review published in the journal Nutrients found a direct link. It turns out people who regularly skip breakfast seem to have a higher risk of developing metabolic syndrome. And this wasn't just some small one-off study. This was a meta-analysis, which means researchers took the data from a bunch of different studies and combined it all to get a bigger, more powerful picture. And get this, just look at the sheer scale of this research. The analysis pulled together data from 9 different studies, covering more than 118,000 people. I mean, that is a ton of participants, which gives this finding some serious weight. We are not talking about a small, isolated observation here. And they didn't just stop there. When they really dug into the data, they found that skipping breakfast was specifically connected to several of the individual pieces of the syndrome. As you can see, this includes things like abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. It's also linked to something called hyperlipidemia, which is basically just a fancy term for having unhealthy cholesterol levels, where the bad stuff is high and the good stuff is low. But you know how we do it here? We can't just take the headline and run. We've got to dig a little deeper and figure out what this data is really telling us, and maybe more importantly, what it isn't. And, experts who looked at this research, they weren't really surprised. Dr. Murali pointed out that these findings line up perfectly with a whole bunch of other studies showing that a morning meal can really kickstart your metabolism and give you the energy you need. It might even help you eat less over the whole day. But here it is, the million-dollar question in pretty much all health science. The study shows a link, a correlation. But does that mean skipping breakfast actually causes these problems? Or is there something else going on? It's really important to be honest about the study's own limitations. For starters, all this data is observational. That means it shows a connection, but it can't prove that one thing causes the other. There could be other factors. They're called confounding factors at play. I mean, think about it. Maybe people who skip breakfast are also just more likely to have other unhealthy habits, like smoking or not exercising, right? On top of that, the way breakfast was defined was different across the studies, and some of the data was incomplete. These are all things we have to keep in the back of our minds. Okay, this brings us to a super important point, something that gets mixed up all the time in this conversation, and that's the difference between just habitually skipping breakfast and practicing intermittent fasting. They are not the same thing. And this really gets to the heart of it. On one hand, you have habitual breakfast skipping. This is often just chaotic, unplanned. It's a habit that's often linked to other not-so-great choices, and it can make you want to overeat later in the day. But then you've got intermittent fasting. That's totally different. It's a deliberate, structured eating pattern. People who do it are often really focused on their overall health. So you can see we're comparing 2 completely different mindsets and behaviors here. Okay, so after all that, the study, the expert opinions, the limitations, what's the real takeaway here? What's the bottom line we should all be thinking about?
I think this quote from Dr. Selena Rains really nails it. The bigger picture here is about supporting your body's natural rhythms. Kicking off your day with a balanced meal isn't just about dodging one specific health risk. It's about setting yourself up for better energy, more balanced hormones, and just that feeling of overall well-being. It's about working with your body, not just following a random habit.
And let's be totally clear here. Breakfast is one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. It's helpful to think of a healthy breakfast as a cornerstone for a healthy day, but it's not a magic bullet. To truly lower your risk for metabolic syndrome, you have to look at your entire lifestyle. We're talking about your overall diet, getting regular exercise, figuring out how to manage stress, and avoiding things like smoking. No single meal ever can make or break your health all by itself. And that's where we'll leave it. This isn't about shaming anyone or demanding that everyone eat oatmeal at 7 a.m. sharp. The whole point here is about being intentional. It's about listening to your own body and thinking about how your morning choices fit into your bigger health goals. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What does a truly healthy, intentional morning look like for you?